Hokage, Uchiha Prodigy unlocks ultimate analysis system. Episode 31. With the release of that Hyuga Naka Ninja Chakra, suddenly, the two of them seem to have entered a gossip realm. Hinata's people stand in the center of the gossip, Uchiha Yen, it is in the southwest Kuan Palace. That Hyuga didn't finish the jutsu technique was taken over by this person. Being in this gossip realm, he felt as if he had been seen through by countless sights, as if no matter how he hidden, those attacks would eventually fall on him. Oops, suffered. Seeing that Hinata's man was about to rush up, Uchiha was in a hurry, so he pulled out the threat from his waist. Inject your high-quality chakra into this black knife, and in an instant, it transforms into a light blue chakra blade. And as the amount of chakra injected increased, the chakra blade once extended. The entire blade rose from the original 60 centimeters to 2 meters in an instant. He thought back to the thousands of training sessions on dummies last night, and thought about the key points on dummies. Suddenly, the Sharingan in his eyes was full of energy, and at this moment, it coincided with Hinata Naka Shinobu rushing in front of him. The horizon, in that momentary freeze, faintly, Hinata's figure, coincided with the dummy. He waved the knife without hesitation. The dummy had hundreds of key markings on his body, and he could only practice a third of it last night. And this 1/3 of the sword art is the sword art in his hands now. Chop. Pair. Chop. Chop. Shoo. There was no longer the disturbing 2, 4, and 8 palms of the Hyuga clan in his ears, only the continuous sound of blades cutting through the human body, cutting muscles, and cutting bones. The other party can't even make a sound. When a third of his sword technique was finished, he only felt a loose body, and when he looked at the Hinata Shinobu again, the other party was already lying on the ground. That blood-spattered face fell right at his feet, and the pair of cataracts were still staring at him fiercely. You. What the hell are you guys? Remember to be honest in the next reincarnation, otherwise you will have to be killed again. You still have more than 30 seconds left, don't say any last words, I won't listen anyway. I just helped him. I don't want to die, save me. I'm sorry, I know you just did a small favor to your friend, and it's very aggrieved to end up in this situation, but the interrogation department doesn't care about this. That person didn't cause a fatal injury to me, and you plan to kill me, so I'm just defensive. Fate is messy, don't you say? Grievance? That's a big grievance. Lao Tzu only joined the battle in a regular match in school, and only joined the battle at the provocation of the opponent. However, the opponent was incompetent and was defeated. Now you still find 2 big brothers to come and find a venue? By chance, he was able to cross the level and kill this Songnin. If he was brought back to life again, was it waiting for him to take revenge? In terms of comprehensive strength, this Hinata Naka Shinobu may not be able to kill him, but he can't kill this Hinata Naka Shinobi. But who let him see that Uchiha was just a ninja school student and was careless? Think that 2 middle ninja beat a ninja student casually? What about the anger that his intelligence was halved and he ignored Uchiha Hiko's one-handed imprint and teleportation? The most important thing was that he could not imagine that the 60-centimeter coercion was used to have a 2-meter effect. Although the white eye could see the chakra fluctuations on that knife, the chakra blade also extended too fast. These add up to Uchiha Yen to kill him. If you change to a second time, you won't have this opportunity. Fong Kai's movement should have alarmed the Konoha police force and even the dark department. So, don't bother with the next thing. Honestly, accept an interrogation, tell the facts as they are, and you'll be fine. Reasonable waist pull hard. As for condemning him for why did you kill a ninja in the same village or something, that is purely brain development. The Hyuga clan, this is a knife, and 2 deadly knives are placed on Uchiha Hiko's neck, and ask him why he killed Hinata's people? Saying. Why did the 2 Naka shinobi try to endanger a ninja school student on the street, and use so many techniques such as the Jochuan method, Hui Tian, and Bagua 32 palms that are dangerous enough to kill people, but none of the ninjas come to the rescue? If there is a dark part that sees it, do the trouble to do it? But no. If this is not a legitimate defense, then he should really reincarnate that person from dirt, and then examine his brain, whether he intends to kill Uchiha Yen, and has already launched the gossip 32 palms. While the people had not yet arrived, he did not want to smell the disgusting smell of blood here, otherwise he would have vomited all the food he had just eaten. Soon. A group of Konoha police officers arrived and quickly cordoned off the scene, taking the other 2 into custody, by thunder. Looking at the bloodstains on the ground, and at the ramen shop owner who was hurriedly packing up furniture not far away, they walked over and began to inquire. Episode 32, Uchiha Hiko, summoned by the clan elder. In the middle of the night, a Uchiha guard appeared in front of Uchiha Hiko. In those eyes of the 3-hook jade riding wheel, in addition to indifference, there was a trace of worship. This look is very puzzling. Huh? I didn't expect Lord Hiko to kill the guy from the Hyuga clan, it's really powerful. Oh. This is my personal word, please don't pass it on, huh? Which of your eyes saw me kill the people of the Hyuga clan? This? I'm just defensive, do you understand defense? Yes, yes, yes. Hiko-sama, please over here. Uchiha sighed. I'm afraid this was not just the idea of a small guard, but the idea of the entire Uchiha masses. The grandson of the great elder, the man who is valued by the Uchiha patriarch, this person, who has not yet graduated from the ninja school, can kill the waste of the Hyuga clan alone. This matter has passed through the mouths of 10 people, and I am afraid that it will be deified. Identity and strength have been recognized, which is also a good thing. Lest those little miscellaneous hairs say that he is so idle. Following the guard all the way to the Uchiha Council Hall, sure enough, Uchiha senior management held another meeting on this matter. However, Uchiha Kagami is not there. The guard stopped at the door, and he strode inside. Looking at the faces of the crowd, it can be described as both good and bad. Uchiha Hiko, do you know what you did? The great elder slapped the table and cursed. Everyone didn't expect that the first to jump out was the great elder. However, after the great elder strongly rebuked Uchiha Hiko, everyone else obediently closed their mouths, and even wanted to persuade the great elder a little in their hearts, don't blame the child too much. Oh, don't be irritable. The patriarch raised his hand to suppress and stabilize the atmosphere. Our ritual today is to solve the problem, not to condemn with anger. Yes. Well, the patriarch is right. I was impulsive, guys. The great elder bowed slightly to apologize. Seeing that the great elder had regained his composure, the patriarch continued, Uchiha Hiko, you killed Hinata Ken, the middle of the Hyuga clan, can you admit it? Hearing this, Uchiha Yen said with a serious face, yes, he died at my hands. The patriarch took a deep breath, so, did you know that killing ninjas in Konoha village is a felony? Very. No, with such a big charge, even the clan can't give Konoha an explanation. Do you know what happened to you next? Uchiha frowned and asked rhetorically, wait, did the patriarch make a mistake? I know that cannibalism among ninjas in Konoha is a felony, but the question is, why do I say that I bear such a big crime? It shouldn't be the Hyuga clan. They sent ninjas to assassinate me, I can't wait for death, right? I just used the sword art that I had not yet learned for a little more in actual combat, and the other party died, and I couldn't blame me for not being perfect. This remark is like moving clouds and flowing water, without any stumbling, it is like a record described in a textbook. Everyone in Uchiha looked at each other, they were shocked by the teenager in front of them again. This kid really said better than his mother. The Konoha police force has already investigated the situation, and it is not the assassination of the Hyuga clan, but the nature of revenge, but with a little conspiracy theory, they can be accused of being jealous and wanting to get rid of the genius of the Uchiha clan. Moreover, according to the scars on the corpse, it is indeed the most basic sword art, or an incomplete version, so many knives hurt life. If a knife is fatal, the nature is different, then it is called premeditated murder. Then, the Hyuga clan sent someone to assassinate him, and was killed by the genius boy of Uchiha who fought back in panic. The Uchiha clan can completely take this handle and go to the Hokage to Hyuga clan for a large sum. This kid, killing people also kills the credit. The patriarch looked at Uchiha Hiko with satisfaction. He did not want to sanction him from the beginning, but wanted to observe his attitude and find a way to excuse him. Now it seems that it is no longer necessary. Hiko, at the latest tomorrow morning, Hokage will forcibly summon you in person. What should you say then? I don't need to worry about it. Uchiha Yen smiled slightly and replied, Shomatsu is not afraid of the shadow oblique. I will tell Naruto-sama 150-110, and ask him to decide for me. Just tell Hokage in 150 and 10, and it would be too much to let him call the shots for you. Ha ha ha, the more I look at this kid, the more I like it. Hey, big old man, your grandson will not be married, I will treat me. Roll, stinky shrimp ratio, you look like a ghost. Seeing the laughter in the audience, the patriarch once again raised his hand to suppress and continued, everyone, now Sarutobi Hinata is anxious to deal with the relationship between various families. This time we have a reason, but we can't ignore the gang of wretched villains of the Hyuga clan. We must pay attention to the safety of Uchiha Hiko from today onwards. I suggest that each elder send a guard. It's all up to the patriarch to arrange. If I'm not old, I'll go and protect this kid. Episode 33, the next morning. Uchiha had just finished washing, with slices of bread in his mouth. A dark shadow flew into his window, and he fixed his eyes on it. It turned out to be the dark part of a cat-faced mask. Uchiha Hiko, Naruto-sama summoned. Hehe, it's been a meeting every day. You must see Naruto-sama immediately, don't play tricks. Yes, yes. In fact, ninjas should eat high-protein foods in the morning, such as fried steak, but there is no time. Grabbing slices of bread, flying over the eaves, it looks like I'm a little rushing to work. The first time I saw the village chief, I didn't know how to behave, but it was absolutely no problem for people who were full to eat and not panic. Looking up at the Hokage building, this was the first time he had seen 3 generations of Hokage alone. For most of the time, the ape flying sun chop in his memory was a bad old man, but the current ape flying is still a young and middle-aged ape flying. It is said that Sarutobi has shown more outstanding talents than Senju since he was a child, and he is still in the period of rising ability. I don't know how terrifying it is. Come with me. The dark part of the cat's face said again. Led by the dark part, he entered the gate, climbed the stairs, and stopped in front of a room covered in calligraphy. Naruto-sama, people have been brought. The dark part spoke in the doorway. Then, Dark reached out and opened the door, signaling Uchiha to enter by himself. This treatment, and someone opened the door, suddenly felt very good. However, he regretted it when he stepped through the door. There was silence in Naruto's office, except for the young version of Sarutobi Hinata sitting opposite, and two ninjas in black coats. The iconic black coat shows their identity, the interrogation department. Just as he was thinking about how to say hello to Sarutobi Hinata, Sarutobi spoke first. Uchiha Hiko, you're here. Yes, Naruto-sama. Uchiha responded. Looking at the atmosphere here, especially the anger exuded by the two interrogation department personnel, he already knew something about the situation. With the ape flying sun, with his vision and judgment, naturally he didn't need two interrogation departments to come over and make a scene. The reason why they are there is only because it is used to suppress the formation, to create an invisible threat to his psyche. But if this is the only one, I am afraid that the ape flying sun will be disappointed. His psychology is as tough as steel and iron. Uchiha Hiko, although you are still young, it is an indisputable fact that you killed people in the village. I believe that both the Uchiha clan and the Shinobu school taught you not to kill the ninja of the village. Sarutobi Hinata first suppressed a wave as soon as he came up, and then continued, I have investigated your performance in the ninja school. Your grades are indeed very good, no worse than Orochimaru, who entered the school early. In the last school competition, you accepted the active invitation of Hinata and used dangerous fire ninjutsu on him. Uchiha nodded. He was an honest man and would not lie. Yes, I fought against Hinata in the ninja school competition, and I used fire ninjutsu. Sarutobi stared at Uchiha intensely, trying to see some flaws in any of his subtle movements to facilitate the conversation that followed, but he failed. Although the person in front of him was still just a child, his whole body was like an iron plate, and he was not timid because he saw the fire shadow, and he did not cower because of the aura of the interrogation department. He had known Uchiha Hiko, and according to his understanding, this child was definitely not the cold-tempered character of Orochimaru. But at this moment, he was so calm. Even if he heard the murder of the village ninja, that was enough to kill. I want to ask you, Uchiha Hiko, you should already know the dangers of fire ninjutsu when you learned it. Why do you use it in a competition with your classmates? Are you trying to kill your companions? Sarutobi asked. Hearing this, Uchiha replied expressionlessly, because the teacher said that fair play is needed, and my original competition group is in front, and Hinata's invitation is behind. I thought that he had understood my strength and was sure enough to defeat me, so I responded to Hinata-san with high respect, but I didn't expect that as soon as I used Izuku ninjutsu, Hinata-san stopped moving, and finally the teacher stopped the competition in time. As for the idea of killing companions and the like, pure nonsense. Listening to the answer, Sarutobi frowned. He originally wanted to ask if Uchiha had a desire to kill or a motive, but this answer completely perfunctory the central content of the question and rationalized all his own actions. This kid's mind is really not simple. In that case, why did you kill Naka Shinobu of the Hyuga clan on the main street of Konoha? Back, Naruto-sama, I'm just a student at a ninja school, 6 years old this year. Isn't it a little bit that I forcibly killed a powerful Naka shinobi of the Hyuga clan? Episode 34. Just as Uchiha was elaborating, there was a sudden knock on the door of Hokage's office. The sound interrupted his words, and also caused Ape Fei-ri to frown in dissatisfaction. He remembered that he didn't summon anyone in again. Immediately afterwards, the sound of struggle and conflict outside the door was heard. Hinata-sama, please wait here, Naruto-sama is discussing important matters. You get out of the way, I want to see Naruto-sama in person. Listening to this dispute, Ape Flying Sun sighed. The person who came was none other than the head of the Hyuga clan, that is, the patriarch of the Hyuga clan. And I, let him in. He shouted helplessly to the door. The dark part is known as a codename, and before the cat-faced dark part opened the door, a man with long hair and waist broke in. The Hyuga clan has always attached importance to etiquette, and this middle-aged and elderly man with long hair and waist coughed twice, and then stuck his temperament and said, Naruto-sama, forgive you for being rude. The age of the ape flying sun chop is not as old as this one. The time to sit in the position of Hokage is not as long as this patriarch of the Hyuga clan. The meaning of this is to be savored. It's okay, I originally wanted to talk to you. Ape Fei-ri said with a smile. The rapid change of face is full of respect, or jealousy, for the power of the big family in Konoha village today. The normal process is to vote for this shadow candidate, and the previous generation of film retires. But Konoha's situation this time is special. Kage died in battle, on the battlefield, the soldiers at the battle. At the end of the war, if it were not for the support of the major families, he might not be able to hold this position. Konoha's power struggle is not as glamorous as it seems. In addition to a few guards under the second generation of major families, who doesn't want to interfere? With the permission of the ape flying sun, the patriarch of the Hyuga clan turned his murderous gaze to Uchiha Yen on the side. Before that, he hadn't even met Uchiha Hiko. Through the family's intelligence, he confirmed that this was Uchiha Hiko. Naruto-sama, why are the criminals standing here so well? Shouldn't he be on death row in Konoha at the moment? He questioned. Ape Fairy looked calm, and deliberately paused for a long time before replying, some things have not yet been implemented, and I hope that you will not be in a hurry. Implementation? Does anyone still suspect that it wasn't this Uchiha imp who killed the ninja of our clan? Do we still need the corpses of my people to stand up and tell the murderer with their own mouths? Calm down. Calm down. Ape Flying Sun said loudly. But if Senjuma was still in power, he would definitely look at Patriarch Hinata coldly and curse and be presumptuous. And not here to persuade him to calm down. With Sarutobi's words, the two interrogation department members also faintly stood on the left and right sides of the Hyuga Patriarch, although they were not good at fighting, but the restraint technique was still quite high. But if this guy is disrespectful to Hokage again, the two of them will tie him up. There are more than 100 people, and there are still numbers in their hearts. Patriarch Hyuga took a deep breath and said, Naruto-sama, please be sure to give an explanation to the Hyuga clan. We need a fair ruling, and if there is an unfair judgment of the dead because of the power of the Uchiha clan, then we the Hyuga clan are willing to stand under the Hokage and jointly resist the Uchiha clan. This is to say, he wants to start a war with the Uchiha clan? That's a must. The village can't withstand the tosses of the first two families. Originally, he wanted to target the Uchiha family, take the opportunity to weaken a little power, and let them balance with other families. But now, listening to Patriarch Hinata's words, he can't target the Uchiha clan. Ape Fairy straightened out his mind and said, when things happen, I can't just look at who is dead and who is alive. Can it be that if the second generation of Lord Mu dies in battle, we will have to be hostile to the current Yunin village forever? What's the difference with a fool? Bringing up the second generation, Patriarch Hyuga was still shocked. He bowed his head. Sarutobi continued, I deeply regret the death of that child, but, in more news, it is said that it was the people of the Hyuga clan who took the initiative to provoke Uchiha Hiko and first used ninjutsu in Konoha's main street, and I have ordered people to block the scene. You can go and see the traces on the ground. Some witnesses have testified that it was the three of the Hyuga clan who launched the revenge against Uchiha Hiko. They started out using jutsu to kill the students of this ninja school. The conversation reversed, and now, Hinata has become a murderous attempt. Of course, Patriarch Hyuga refused to carry this pot, so he immediately retorted, Lord Naruto, the sacrifice of the clan family cannot be sacrificed in vain. Maybe it was premeditated by the people of the Uchiha clan, otherwise how could this little devil run to the main street late at night, and their clan did not serve food? Otherwise, with this little ghost, how can he defeat two Zonin of our clan? Hearing this, Uchiha almost laughed. The Hyuga clan can also be regarded as a famous clan that has been in Konoha for a long time, and their clan has the power, or the Hyuga clan has the right to train the ninja of the clan by themselves, without having to accept the lower ninja preparation regulated by Konoha, and other strength allows them to directly participate in the middle ninja exam. Episode 35. As for whether those two people received basic training from the family or studied at the ninja school, he didn't know. But now looking at the Hyuga Patriarch is like a dog jumping off the wall, and he actually framed this as a conspiracy of the entire Uchiha clan. How ridiculous. Today's Uchiha clan, even if it has been devastated by war, even if it has gone through a civil war in the clan, is not comparable to the Hyuga clan. With Uchiha Kagami, a second-generation disciple, and the Konoha police force, they will always lack a pair of cars. Need a conspiracy against them Hyuga clan? The reason? This senior, Uchiha has no time to fight with you Hinata, my clan's mind is on protecting Konoha, and my master Uchiha Kagami often told me to love peace and love the village. If you say this about the Uchiha family, you are suspected of being framed for slander. I can't help but wonder if yesterday's events were controlled by you. Uchiha said coldly. Whether Uchiha wanted to fight Hinata or not, no one knew, not even the Mune Patriarch. However, Uchiha Kagami is an absolute pacifist. Even if it's not, it's an absolute villagerist. This is clear to the contemporary Hokage Ape Flying Sun. It's just that. When did Uchiha Kagami become a venerable master? Little ghost, I'm talking to Naruto-sama, when is it your turn to interject? Do you understand the rules? Patriarch Hyuga looked contemptuous of Uchiha Hiko. Maybe it's the inside of their family. Different or young voices are not allowed. Uchiha was not the slightest bit angry, only sympathetic. At this moment, a voice came from behind. It's you who don't know the rules, eye-rolling guy. There were many scenes of disputes in front of Hokage, but there were really no people who directly opened their mouths to curse. Looking back, the great elder of the Uchiha clan pushed open the door of the Hokage's office and walked in. Even this guy is in, it's okay for me to come in, right? The great elder smiled and said, how could Uchiha let a child break into the Dragon Pond Tiger's den alone, and from the moment they entered their clan from the dark part, they would have followed behind long ago. When Hinata's people come in, they naturally want to come in too. That's fair. Sarutobi Hinata beheaded one head and two big, and during the second generational period, Uchiha Kagami often used the Sharingan to help the Sarutobi Danzo group, and he owed favors. Yes, this matter really requires both sides to be here. He said helplessly. Well, I heard from far away that someone here ignored the majesty of Lord Naruto, and the deputy captain of the Konoha police force came to help. The great elder said decently. Ignoring the majesty of the Hokage? Who else could that be? Could it be the young Uchiha Hiko? Patriarch Hinata's eyes widened, and he said angrily, blood spouts people, ha ha ha, if Lao Tzu has blood in his mouth now, he really wants to spray you on the face. Don't face things, the waste cultivated by their own family does not know how to become a middle ninja. If the middle ninja of our family burps like that, Lao Tzu's ass is embarrassed to put it. You're good, I'm afraid others won't know. The great elder laughed, it was his free-spirited posture that made the staid Hyuga patriarch very disgusted and angry. However, Uchiha Yen on the side was already dumbfounded. In his impression, this bad old man was an ancient person. Usually a straight face, like old age facial paralysis. But now the scene, isn't the first ancient troll account unfrozen? Patriarch Hinata clenched his fists, out of human instinct, he wanted to spray back. But after thinking about it, as a patriarch, it can't be like this. So he had to reply mildly, Naruto-sama, listen to what this man says. Hearing this, Ape Feiry did not answer for a long time. He is now difficult to ride a tiger. Young him, in front of the two seniors who have experienced the temperament of the times, really lacks majesty. And what about Hokage? Unless the white hair hanging on the wall is not dead, but if he retires normally, he can also support him, and he also has confidence. Seeing that the outside world is now in turmoil, such a thing has happened in the village, involving all the two major families. This is the last thing he wants to face. Uchiha Hiko saw at a glance the embarrassment of Sarutobi Hinata, and a thought suddenly arose in his heart, Naruto-sama, I don't think the people of the Hyuga clan did mean this matter. I can forgive Hinata Naka Shinobu's assassination, but to resolve the unwarranted resentment in the hearts of the elders of the Hyuga clan, Suzu must also tie Suzuto. The origin of the matter must be investigated in Hinata-san. It was Hinata-san's loss of concentration in the first place. I'm afraid it was malnutrition. I won by luck. Our Uchiha clan is focused on the Konoha police force. There is really no strength to compete with the powerful Hyuga clan. If you really calculate, it is better to find a time for me to try again with Hinata, so that the Hyuga clan can also regain their dignity in an upright manner. Little ghost, who do you say assassinated you? Okay, that's a good idea. Before the Hyuga patriarch finished speaking, Grand Elder Uchiha clapped his hands and applauded. Lord Naruto, the white-eyed clan elder, looking at the turbulent situation in the ninja world today, the village has finally settled down. You must not fight among your own family. Think of the infighting in Yunin village back then, everyone understands the consequences. Episode 36. Ape Flying Sun slashed his eyes, this method is indeed a good way. No matter how he decides now, there is always a large family of dissatisfaction. But you can't watch the two major families of Konoha go head-to-head, then you become a truly incompetent Hokage. It is better to make it big and small, and let their own descendants have a regular competition. This can not only measure the strength of the two major families, but also alleviate the hatred this time. Although it can only be alleviated, it cannot be completely resolved. But when he survived this old generation, Konoha would listen to him alone. At that time, it will be a matter of his order. Senior General, do you think this proposal is appropriate? He asked. Patriarch Hinata clenched his fists and clenched his teeth. According to the intelligence, this little devil of Uchiha on the side has mastered B-level ninjutsu. What an amazing talent. Just with the smelly boy of Hyuga at home, even if he comes 100 times, he can't be his opponent. No, I don't propose to let these two children face off again. I hope Naruto-sama can personally preside over the younger generation competition between Uchiha and Hinata, and each party sends 3 teams to compete fairly. Hinata also has his own calculations in his heart, and it is impossible for Uchiha's people to produce a second Uchiha Hiko. But the people of the Hyuga clan can rely on the white eyes, and the group cooperates seamlessly with each other. In terms of individual combat, they have to admit that they are inferior, but when it comes to group combat, they are not as simple as 1 + 1 is equal to 2. When the time comes, follow the behavior of that kid Uchiha Hiko. One person may not be able to use it, but the power of the gossip empty palm of the combined power of 3 people is not inferior. Good. This is a good idea. Grand Elder Uchiha clapped his hands again. Patriarch Hinata understands the great righteousness, the old man admires. Better than you. Yes, you are really better than the old man. Saying that, the great elder also reached out and patted Uchiha Hiko. That meaning couldn't be more obvious. This is the descendant of Lao Tzu. Are you better than Lao Tzu? Do you deserve it? Seeing that the two sides reached a collegiate agreement, Sarutobi waved his hand and directly arranged. Then just a month later, on September 30th, Hinata and Uchiha will meet in the Forest of Death, and I will personally preside over it. During this time, no disputes will be allowed between the two of you. Yes. Yes, I completely agree. Yes. Ape Fairy breathed a sigh of relief and said, in that case, you guys retreat. I have blocked the news. Only the relevant people know. I hope you don't spread it yourself. Yes. 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 Scatter. Several people left one after another, and as the ape flying sun, he leaned back and leaned on the back of the chair. Mirror, you taught a good student, thanks to him today. He was actually relieved by a ninja school student today. Think of when he was a child, under the door of the teacher Senju Kuruma, people often praised him at that time, saying that he was better than Senju Kuruma. But today in comparison, Uchiha Yan's talent is even better than he was back then. Back in the Uchiha clan, the great elder regained his senile facial paralysis. From today onwards, you have to double your training. Hinata's guys propose group battles, which will be very beneficial to them, and if it goes on like this, in a month I should send the white-haired person to the black-haired person. Stinky boy, Uchiha Yen smiled, don't fight tightly, don't fight tightly. I thought I was going to fight with tongues today, but I didn't expect your old man to come over in person. Less proud, I just look at that old guy unhappy. You think I'm really worried about you? Yes, you're right. Get out, I'll go to the patriarch to discuss who will fight with you in a month. Okay. .. After leaving the great elder, he immediately rushed to the training ground. From last night's actual battle, he found that swordsmanship is really good. No wonder he likes to pick up a small stick to play around since he was a child. This is human instinct. He hasn't laid the foundation of swordsmanship yet, so he wants to practice well. Forced learning and personal hobbies are completely different things. When talking about personal hobbies, even if you are tired, it is full of energy. Shadow doppelganger art. Boom. 2 doppelgangers identical to him appeared on either side of him. You help me to class. Leave it to me. You practice swordsmanship with me. No. He himself has already mastered a third of the foundation, which took half a day at that time, so now with the shadow avatar, it takes a whole day's work. It must not be difficult to master the complete version. If the shadow avatar, he can actually divide another one, but there is no need for that. It is enough to have a shadow avatar, and if it is added to 3 at the same time, then the exhaustion brought by the lifting is not cost-effective at all. It's better for him to carry out high-quality cultivation here with 1 body and 1 doppelganger. The 3 meals a day required for cultivation were sent by the family, which was quite comfortable. Episode 37, not to mention the Hyuga family, the all-staff mobilization has begun. Uchiha Clan Land. Uchiha Yan's basic practice of swordsmanship had been honed alone for 5 days, and in these 5 days, he had mastered the basic routines of swordsmanship. However, I have not seen Uchiha Kagami for the past 5 days. He wondered if Uchiha Kagami was doing a mission outside and died outside. That's not a good sign. Just said a word of honorable master in the front, and the person behind died. Isn't that a master of his kindness? Unable to learn the updated techniques, he could only use the system to analyze the basic sword techniques to fill the gap in cultivation. System, analyze the basic sword art. Ding dong, prompt the host, the basic sword art has begun to be analyzed. It takes time, 1 day. Looking at the parsing time required by the system, he couldn't help but be slightly surprised. This most basic sword art actually takes a real day, and the difficulty is equivalent to sea-level ninjutsu. He originally thought that this basic sword art was at most equivalent to E-level ninjutsu. After all, there is a word basic. In other words, the threshold for swordsmanship is high. And during this day's analysis time, he met an unexpected person, Shimura Danzo. Sure enough, Danzo-san is everyone's point of passage in Konoha. 1 word, dedication. Looking at Danzo, who was walking from afar, and the 2 members of the rude organization beside him, Uchiha really wanted to turn around and leave. However, the smelly crossed jaw still opened his mouth to stop him. Uchiha Hiko. What's the matter? Before Tuanzan could speak, he climaxed first, presumptuous, do you know who this is? Uchiha looked at the 2 masked men and replied expressionlessly, I don't know, I can't remember the whole village of Konoha. Are you the Dark Ministry? The left and right wanted to force an explanation, but Tuanzo raised his hand and stopped them. Then, he took the initiative to lower his head and asked, I am Shimura Danzo, a comrade-in-arms of Uchiha Kagami, and the leader of the Gen organization. Kagami-senpai's comrades-in-arms, I don't know what the root organization is? Tuanzong was secretly happy in his heart. With his ability to fool people, it was easy to fool this ignorant child into his own organization. He pointed to the trees that could be seen everywhere on the side of the road and explained, look, this tree, the tree is strong and leafy, but do you know what the force that supports it to grow like this? Tuanzong smiled. Uchiha Yen really saw this man smile, and smiled so kindly. Is nature supporting it? Is it watering? Not quite. People need power to live, that is, to eat, and the same is true for trees to live. Its root is the power that supports it. Oh. Our Konoha is like this big tree, and my roots are the force that supports the growth of this big tree. Your roots. Uchiha really wants to complain, maybe the 6-year-old child is innocent and flawless, and he will really be fooled by Danzo. But now that he heard, did Tuanzo like to penetrate the floor? Seeing Uchiha Hiko lost in thought, the joy on Danzo's face was even greater. He continued, I have a lot of children like you in my root organization. They are all genius teenagers like you, and I, who is responsible for raising them into Konoha's buried roots, are real ninjas, real great nameless people who hide in the shadows and fight hard for the village. How about it, would you like to come with me to visit my root headquarters? Uchiha Yen decisively shook his head and replied, I'm not for anything, it's just that I personally like glory, death, and hangovers, and I'm not interested in some great nameless person. The nameless? Then I will be a hammer ninja. It is better to go back to farming, that is really nameless. Episode 39. Rejected by such a reason, Tuanzong was slightly stunned, but he was not overly surprised. He has experienced too many people and things, and there are many such cases. On the contrary, this time to find out his psychology, you can take it next time. He smiled slightly, pretended to stagger away, and left a sentence in Uchiha Hiko's ear. There is darkness in your heart, your darkness, your talent, which can only be revealed at the root. Uchiha didn't answer, just watched them leave. When he saw their figures disappearing into the street, he muttered, if Lao Tzu encounters such a neuropathy in the interview, he will report it on the spot. The contact with Tuanzo was only such a brief period. Perhaps with his personal charm, he can plant the seeds of curiosity in the hearts of ordinary people. But Uchiha Hiko's firewall is a new version of the ship, and when Quan was walking down the street today, a dog came over and barked a few times. Forget later. After a day, the time for system analysis finally ended, and he continued to practice. Ding dong, the basic sword art analysis has been completed, please pay attention to the host. Uchiha walked to his remote cultivation ground, sat down on a cobblestone, and began to check. Basic sword art, the basic sword technique evolved from the dummy training provided by Uchiha Kagami. The host will gain a deeper understanding of basic sword art. Advantages, full killing technique, without any superfluous movements. Disadvantages, single attack mode, lack of lethality in the face of powerful ninjas. Analysis, derivation, flash cutting, kick the target into the air, and then use the teleportation technique to cooperate with the key slash to strike at the target multiple times. Feeling the analysis of swordsmanship transmitted from the system, originally his basic swordsmanship stayed on the surface, that is, the stage after everyone learned basic swordsmanship. It is not easy to fully grasp it. You must know that in a few seconds to swing a knife to slash hundreds of key points in the human body, so that even the appearance, it is quite strong. After systematic in-depth analysis, he instantly gained a deeper understanding and comprehension of basic swordsmanship. Swords are used to kill, the so-called one law is all laws, almost all sword art is evolved from the basics, even if it is a sword art that carries the nature of ninjutsu, it is also necessary to have such a foundation. The system helped him deepen his understanding, which was equivalent to giving him points for his basic attributes in swordsmanship, and it could even be said that he added points to his swordsmanship talent. When he slowly digested the deeper understanding of swordsmanship, he could feel that the sword in his hand had changed its nature. The black knife he used to hold in his hand was just a black knife. But now, when he reached out and held the hilt, he could feel a sense of connection, as if this knife could change a lot in his hand. Take the previous dummy training as an example. If before he needed to smoothly slash all the marks on the dummy within 7 seconds, now he only needs 1 second. Just a second. This is not a simple 6-second boost, this is a qualitative leap. Then, he looked at the sword art that was analyzed by the system and derived from the basic sword art. Flash cut? At this time, he who had the super high sword art comprehension, just by looking at it, he understood the general nature of this sword art. In his opinion, this sword technique is just a basic slash, adding 2 fronts. One is that it is necessary to knock the target into the air to make it unbearable. One is to use the teleportation technique to move quickly and launch slashes at the target in different directions. This makes the target difficult to block, and when the two are combined, the target can only be passively beaten. This sword art can be said to be bells and whistles, and it can also be said that it is quite practical. The reason why we say bells and whistles is because it requires flying and instantaneous slashes, both of which are uncertain. What if the target is not knocked off? What if it is only a stand-in that is knocked off? What if the air slash is wrong? There is so much uncertainty that creates the risks of this procedure. Even if you slash in the air, if you encounter a strong enemy, you are likely to be counterattacked. However, there is a reason why it is quite practical. The same are the above. When proficiency reaches a certain level, the so-called bells and whistles will evolve into one word: steady. The seemingly soaring swordsmanship, when integrated, will change from a low error tolerance rate to a full grasp, swordsmanship talent, and stable and show. That's called a master. It was precisely at this moment that he had obtained a profound basic sword art understanding obtained with the help of the system, and with such basic skills, he was full of confidence in learning the sword art. Instantaneous technique, he can already perform a one-handed seal continuously, and the rest is a powerful enough kick. Strong enough to kick people in the air with one blow. That's a pre-requirement like Konoha fluid and Kajimai. Therefore, from now on, he needs to cultivate for leg strength and the use of chakra. High-quality chakra can greatly increase the strength of the human body, but the training of the flesh cannot be ignored. Episode 40, by mid-September. Uchiha Hiko saw the figure of Uchiha Kagami. Seriously, in the era when there was no phone contact, he didn't see him for half a month, and he felt that Uchiha Kagami was dead outside. What are you doing for half a month? Uchiha asked directly, without a word of greeting. When Uchiha Kagami returned, he naturally accepted the popularity of the family and already knew about the covenant between Hinata and Uchiha. He smiled apologetically and replied, "Well, I, as a shinobi, haven't been on a mission for a long time, and this time it's business. Official business? I'm afraid it's an S-class mission." "Where did you go?" Uchiha didn't care, and asked casually while preparing the cultivation supplies. Uchiha Kagami shook his head and replied, "Confidential. Oh, can't tell you. Hee, you have a smell of dirt slag on your body. You should have gone to the country of soil, right?" Don't talk about this, let's go to the cultivation field as soon as possible." Uchiha Kagami seemed anxious, seemingly anxious to teach ninjutsu swordsmanship to Uchiha Hiko. If it was just because of the family war, it would make sense. After all, because of his departure, Uchiha Yen spent half of his cultivation blank in vain. Half of the time wasted, he needs to make up for it with double effort. The two went straight to the cultivation field, and Uchiha Kagami couldn't wait to draw the short knife behind his back. "Yen, you should have completed the cultivation of basic swordsmanship yourself during this time, right?" "Well, I think it's interesting, so I finished practicing by myself." "Well, I'll teach you swordsmanship and flash cutting now. Remember to open the Sharingan eye and take a closer look." Without waiting for Uchiha to speak, Uchiha Mirror kicked the dummy in the cultivation field into the sky, and then leaped up and launched a series of attacks on the dummy with a short knife. His figure moved in the air, slashing at the point of the dummy one after another. Eventually, he leapt to the top and landed on the ground with a top-down slash. Uchiha Mirror, which closed his hand perfectly, put away the short knife and looked at Uchiha Yen. Why didn't you open the Sharingan? Did you just see clearly?" Uchiha spread his hands. "I don't think it's interesting." "What?" "I don't think your glitter cut is interesting." No, you shouldn't have seen it clearly, I'll show you again." No. Uchiha quickly pulled the Uchiha Mirror. I watch your flash cut. It's a bit inferior." Hearing this, Uchiha Mirror couldn't help but be stunned. What is his flash cut a little inferior? Look down on people? Could it be? Releasing the Uchiha Mirror, Uchiha pulled out the flank from his waist, and above the black knife, it seemed to be a light blue blade. "Senior Mirror, I'd rather look good, flash cutting is played like this." After speaking, Uchiha Hiko's body moved. I saw that he held a knife in his right hand, and his left hand made a seal, and suddenly, his body disappeared in front of Uchiha Kagami. With the help of the teleportation technique, he appeared like the wind near the dummy who had just landed. Immediately rotated his body, and with the force of the spinning kick, he lifted the dummy into the air. Shadow Doppelganger art. He sealed the seal with one hand and separated a shadow doppelganger. From both directions, the avatar and the body jumped towards the rising dummy at the same time. When he reached the best height he usually mastered in cultivation, the body and doppelganger launched an offensive. The two staggered, and the sword light cut a trace in the air. That blow with the power of the dash should have caused them to fly in the opposite direction, unable to complete the combo in a short period of time in the air. However, at the moment they staggered over, the two made a seal with one hand at the same time. Instantaneous technique. The positions of the two were instantly reversed, originally facing back, and now they were instantly reversed. Moreover, the blade in that hand attacked the dummy again. In the instant of attacking the dummy, the figures of the two staggered again, only the west and east, this time the north and south. In this way, southeast, northwest, up and down, left and right, their sword light staggered in an instant, and frequent and dense attacks weaved a web of sword light in midair. And their figures with cold front sprinting, the radius is limited to the right distance, and the two are quickly replaced. With that dummy as the center, it was like a blade of sword chi coming from all directions, all stabbing at it. All this was done in an extremely short time, so in the eyes of Uchiha Kagami, those sword lights almost formed spheres. It can be described as a 360s no-dead angle attack. In the end, Uchiha and his shadow doppelganger rose tall, and the two slashed at the dummy from top to bottom with an attack at an acute angle. That knife was like a blade that cut through the sky, cold light was like a pillar, and falling earthquakes were like thunder. With the disappearance of the shadow doppelganger, the dummies that had turned into countless segments in the sky landed one after another.